So the government's been trying to play God? Hell has really risen on earth? Heaven only exists in the forms of power and status? And yet there are still hidden or underground cults and conspiracies calling out to the devil through infomercials? If you're reading, listening, or watching this title, just know this. I've said it and plenty of others have said it. Life's unpredictable even when we think we've got a grasp on everything there is to know. How about I start with this, okay? First things first. The elections were already finished, even though there are still other branches of ballots counting up percentages to be filled. But again, I digress. We ended up having our 46th soon to take office, and I'm part of the votes counted even though I'm still a skeptic, cause with all of the politics in general, I don't trust it, and I ain't big on it. I ain't no politician. I ain't looking for campaigns to run. I ain't trying to put my name on a list to be in the running. I don't know politics. I just know what's on the surface and still question. What's the motive? I'm happy to say that our 45th is desperately trying to keep his business in dictatorship, taking his shots from Twitter fingers or drowning in liquor, still believing he was making things great, and continues his downward spiral of making things worse. I don't need to sit through another term with only the promise of more destruction and separation behind the pen and buttons. He's already been the punching bag. He don't need the office for that. Moving on, though. I've mentioned this as well. Doesn't matter which side it is. As a whole, it was just another bickering match at this point. Even though I will say that words are just words. And this is for the left. You can say the right things in hopes of better things to come, but in practice, putting those words to action is the real challenge. Because I won't believe any of it until I see it, let alone hear about it. In the meantime, I'll say this. At the end of the day, it's up to the people. It's up to us to tap into that mindset of bringing unity to the forefront, more often to be seen and heard. Easier said than done. Of course it is. I know that. It doesn't hurt to keep trying if it means that progression sparks the movement so that our voices reaches new heights in the expansion. Speaking of the people, I expect more, I expect better, I expect potential greatness. This ain't really too much to ask, except this is just wishful thinking if it takes one to drive a wedge setting off a crisis. What I meant to say is another crisis on top of other crises that raises the prices and drops the cost. Yeah, every one of us can point the finger and single out. To generalize everyone by one action defined by race, class, culture, etc. Okay, now, I may have spoken on us as a whole since I tend to mention that we are all the human race. We ain't just split into different groups. We're together in this community. To use hate as the fuel to weaponize validation that when we keep this up, then we're all just a bunch of Karens trying to benefit from taking control by patrolling other people's lives and then unintentionally take over the viral game. But to be specific, what's been lacking is the truth within the accountability, even when it ain't everybody. It's usually just the select few that creates the broad stroke narrative of handouts and receipts. This part of life is now the vignettes and montages on each of us, taking on many roles, pulling out the drama of the Truman Show, and bringing in the comedy of Ed TV, the dramedy, if you will, only just to keep performing on any platform. Instead of, or even when self-awareness comes into the picture, again, what lacks in that department is the uncomfort of being blatantly, silently pigeonholed into obscurity. We gotta help each other build and rebuild, not just by physical means collectively, though these pandemic circumstances change that dynamic. It's individually these mental and emotional pleads. When everything is accessible, we've already been going for broke. That's when the true test of the psychological begins. Entertainment becomes the cringeworthy and all the tragic stories, the reverse effect from the consumers to the distributors, sending out sales to ship and market the young, new acts to receive their shovel signed in ink within the ocean of early graves. To bring the street slash pop star life to the music, to the TV, to the movies, so at any time all these depictions could water that down, only to breeze over and briefly address the deeply rooted issues that surfaces so often, but the conflicts has been normalized. Our condolences don't seem real, don't feel real, when we just post them with the hashtags and photo slash video reels. Store windows, hiring. Milk containers or cartons, missing. Utility poles, wanted. Yet when it's death, it's plastered everywhere. What was said is what was said, but what's really getting done to prevent more of these fallen names? Known? Unknown? What's the plan? They keep getting younger every year. With every incident, every suicide, every kidnapping, every accident, every violent altercation, in this case, that could have been avoided. From not getting into the middle of any and every escalated beef, leading into getting caught up in the fight to the death, drugged and or killed just for the rep, or just trying to make it out still looking over the shoulder. To put food in the mouths, keep a roof over their heads, provide the clothes on the backs of those they care about the most. As the world gets colder, the family home gets warmer, temporarily. As the reveals get bolder, the promises are slowly wearing thin. The guarantee of supplying hope comes into question when wisdom can easily be raining hail or barricading boulders. Yet it can be the haikus or poetry in booklets, guidelines and research or speeches, counseling or therapy sessions, any form of tough love or reassuring patience for the future advice that's necessary. General cursed cycles that can be broken due to better choices. Tattooed on a chain, recruited and or crossing of the self to accessorize religion, and then there's others trying to claim Christianity, just wanting to drop Christ on everybody. Like they're the saints, so the rest of us are sinners as if they ain't the ones to blame, playing a part in separating people like they're superior. Yes, there are different beliefs of different backgrounds. Those that each believe a higher power will protect them. True. But then there's the huge egos that actually makes those claim statements inferior. Sounds like narcissistic anarchy to me. So how about those who ain't religious or faithful? As they usually say, to make the disclaimer, to briefly express those thoughts they'd rather see where life takes them instead of the straight narrow path. As a man of God, yes, the straight and narrow is what I grew up in, hoping that I'll apply the teachings to open minds instead of closed tunnel vision. Atheists exist, but also the bottom line's evident. Now looking at the news that's supposed to be the messages of getting out useful information, I'll stumble across it, the conversations will happen, but I don't watch or keep up with it on the daily. Whether it's early reports, latest updates, or receiving the latest at the very moment while on the air, small stories can be divergence from the bigger issues that's addressed. And the so-called big scoops distracts from even the smallest depths of relevant details. So much so that we eventually look towards the celebrities and their takes on the social outer rims of the media inner circles. When we do, we gotta take their words with huge grains of salt. Cause who's to say it is or isn't a PR move? If it ain't, then it's coming from a genuine place. If it is, then it only sounds like they care about saving face. We've become low-key journalists in search of the truth or omitting the truth. But admitting it? comes with the rebuttals. Laying it out and above the table or sweep it off and underneath the rug, as per usual. What's been said on the record, we can't just take every statement and say it's facts or trying to live like they do, becoming the many pawns in one large chess game. Each match begins civil wars. As extensive as my thoughts can be, people, I only hope to see improvements. The journey is more than just pit stops, it's discovery. This is the table of contents in a nutshell. Is there a point where I've peaked looking over the top? I'm writing like I'm barring up a Kit Kat dessert after eating from my plate, going tit for tat with myself, trying to top myself towards the sweet taste at the finish, reaching towards the moon and back like I got the juice firing off, but sipping on the tangy sharpness, leaving room to breathe between the gut punches of the pen and the moment of silence reaction. So, as I'm typing with each click of the spacebar, it ain't just a table read within the scripture of life. Overnight, when it's really over plenty of nights till the breakthrough day comes back around. That once you start to throw that boomerang of your growth into the world, life tosses the return of extra knowledge. That experience ain't only just for me. Again, it's a reminder for everyone else. I guess what the title suggests is that when I engage in digital content, I'll get lost in it. That the time I spend on my tech has been limited because I tend to keep myself distant. In order to find myself with the tangible, I have to let go for a while.